top news story of the day, of course, or of the week, is, of course, COVID. Um, Despite everyone's best efforts to pretend like it doesn't exist, it does. Even Jackson Lamar will admit publicly that COVID is real. He just really wants you to know he's not going to do a damn thing about it. And if anything, he's going to try to make it worse. 3,300 new cases, 7-day average is up to 2,500 cases. 1,600 people are in the hospital on the 3-day average. And of course, deaths now that we are well into this surge are accelerating rapidly, over 9,000 based on CDC preliminary data. So yeah, I mean, and just for context, I wish they'd show you the whole chart, but like we were at 2,000 back in January. So rapidly approaching the worst we were back then. Frontier's got some great coverage of it. Back to doing pretty much every day something new. Got vaccine numbers are ticking up a little bit now from like a bottom out in July. But yeah, so COVID's bad. We've established that. What is our governor doing? So Governor Stitt gave a pretty big speech at the Tulsa Chamber of Commerce, like State of the State thing that I guess their chamber puts on. And, this was a 20-minute speech, mostly of like your typical Rotary business guy backslapping, just telling everyone how great everyone in that room is and how y'all are the real Oklahomans. And, the rest of us schlups are just out here, I don't know, sucking up your oxygen or whatever. Talks about Canoe, which, I mean, even as recently as like a few months ago is rapidly entering like serious financial questions and distress. So it's like I love it when people have takes that it's like they're not gonna like not age well. It's like they might not age well in like 6 months. So anyway, maybe that's a symptom of our times that people think they can get away with that. But the big news is that basically he didn't say anything about COVID. Didn't weigh in, and of course we have state law banning the implementation of mask mandates in schools, but he didn't say a single word. He's got videos out talking about the mess in Afghanistan. He's got endless time to make comments about culture war issues, but 30 Oklahomans died yesterday, or the numbers got updated. 9,000 have died since the pandemic began, and he doesn't have like a single word to say about it. And, but he did say he was asked the biggest problem in Oklahoma, and his reaction to that was McGirt, which is crazy. I mean, McGirt only impacts, like, as far as we know, criminal trials in certain parts of the state. So that prompted a swift condemnation. George Monks, former president of the State Medical Association, said, most pressing issue is clearly COVID, gave his reasons for that. Some of the tribes, the Muskogee Nation, really had a pretty awesome tweet thread here that really set the record straight on a lot of Stitt's claims in that speech. And then the Cherokee Nation also too put out their press release on it. But, basically it's just, again, platform for Stitt to get up, give a bunch of propaganda, and not address the far more serious issues that are facing the state of Oklahoma than, arguably giving the criminal legal system over to a far more responsible and responsive entity like the tribes. So yeah, that is what Stitt's been up to this week. Thoughts?
For all of his idiocy, Kevin Stitt has some political instincts. That's how he got to be governor, right? He has some political instincts. And so the question has to become, how does he think he can get away with not mentioning a worsening pandemic? We're like top 10 in the country. I think like number 9 in per capita or something. So the question is how he can get away. What makes him believe he can get away with not even addressing that in a quote unquote state of the state? It's clearly like nothing else is killing 30 Oklahomans today. McGirt isn't killing any Oklahomans, right? Like nothing else is killing 30 Oklahomans today. So just on the basis of being quote unquote pro-life or whatever the fuck you want to call it, it takes no intellectual rigor to realize what the most pressing issue in Oklahoma is COVID-19, as it is in the entire world, even for places that have, I don't want to say defeated it because none of us have, but those who are addressing it even better than us, they would tell you the biggest issue we have is COVID-19. The issue, he thinks he can get away with it because no one ever holds him accountable. And that's kind of why we exist, and that is why we have to continue on this quest, because no politician who can win anything beyond a dog catcher race would say with a straight face the biggest issue the biggest issue in any place in the world right now is not COVID-19, unless there's like war or famine going on in your country. And sometimes COVID-19, depending on the day, can trump that. But if there's not war or famine or the like, or natural disaster in your country, like natural disaster currently occurring, right? Mm-hmm. Then easily COVID-19 is the most pressing issue. Stitt said that BS because he doesn't know how to address COVID-19, and he doesn't think he'll be held accountable for one, saying that just completely not mentioning COVID-19, or number two, even worse, his failures to adequately address COVID-19. So that's the primary issue. Right, like if I have a really bad case and I suck at it, and you ask me what's the biggest issue in my practice right now, I'm not gonna bring the case up. But right, but that being said, if you can say, what about that case you fucking up on? Like I feel like that's the one that's killing people. That isn't pressing for you, right? So the issue is the fact that he thinks he can get away with, and let's be frank, there is a high likelihood he will. He won't pay a political price for like not mentioning COVID-19 is the most pressing issue in a state in which a pandemic is ravaging us. Like we don't have this under control at all. We're one of the worst outbreaks in the world. So how is that not the biggest issue pressing the state? That's absurd on its face to say something like that. So I don't know, man. I hope that we can build a coalition to just nail him on the most basic stuff. We don't even need him to like be a great governor. Yeah. Just acknowledge the obvious.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing, and I'm trying to read the comment and react and think of a few things, so I apologize. I might have to reread it. But like, the only thing we did all right was get the vaccine out the door like right away. But even since then, we've now fallen, I think we're like 12th worst in the country for vaccinations. So, I mean, we have like long since dropped to the bottom of that list too. And that's the only thing you've decided to do right. And when you're talking about a virus and how it replicates, and now with Delta where it replicates a lot faster, it's like, it's a layered approach. And so you don't have to do everything perfectly like lockdowns or whatever, but you got to do some of the stuff. And we're doing like none of it and then hoping for like a different outcome. And I mean, I don't understand at this point when you have all this data, how you can't, I mean, how people are still just like this bamboozled by it. You know, like I get on some level you want to get COVID to own the libs. You know, there's some like, I'm just like the obstinate child thing. Like, I'm not going to do it because you told me to do it. But at some point, like, doesn't it eventually like come home to roost? I mean, apparently it doesn't. I mean, obviously we're sitting here in the middle of it, still not doing anything. But I mean, I don't know how many times you can get kicked in the face and not eventually like move your head to the side or react slightly differently. And it's also funny watching guys, like there was some, I guess I'll tweet already this morning, probably should have pulled it up, but of Lance Fry, who's our commissioner of health, now saying, 3 weeks into school, every school person should wear a mask. And it's just like, how many times do you have to get played the fool by Kevin Stitt and only to like come to your senses like way after the fact and pretend to do something about it? It's this like sort of like craziness where you've got this one group, Stitt, Lemire, the far right, reacting to these people who we'll show where they've gone here in a minute, with the ivermectin shit. Like these people who are just completely unhinged, like catering to them, while like the group of us that are like, damn people, we should do something about this pandemic, gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and we still don't, like, we have the power. Like the people who want to stop the pandemic overwhelmingly have the power. We just have to use it, and we're not using it anywhere. Kevin Stitt's not using it because he's a psycho, but many school boards aren't, city councils aren't. I mean, they're like, wear masks if you feel like it. Well, I mean, that doesn't work. Like we've tried that. It didn't work the first time. It's not working the fourth time or whatever we're on now. So, and like I said, we'll get to where these other folks are going in a minute. But like that's where we're going. Like that is where we're going, is to this place where it's just more and more death, more and more suffering, more and more lunacy as far as like solutions. And that's where Kevin Stitt and his ilk are leading us. And all these other folks are just sitting around being like, yeah, what are we going to do? And that's really frustrating to me.
Yeah, the one, I'm not sure where it is per capita. Louisiana was one, but Florida has arguably the worst outbreak in the world. And that's because DeSantis he and Stitt both have national presidential ambitions. And what is being done here is quite obvious. They are putting their presidential ambitions ahead of saving lives. That's the long and the short of it. So, okay, in an ideal world, you have leadership that you have elected, be it the president, the governor, the legislatures that are supposed to be protecting you. If that fails to happen, it's unfortunate, but Fry and the like have to be adamant, like, no, this is what will save you. And it can't be some tweet 3 weeks out. It has to be before. Masking saves lives. Every
period
day, like leading up to school, before we go to school, I want you to remember masking saves lives, all caps. Masking saves lives, masking saves lives, masking saves lives, right? Like these, and the wild thing is he would get out and half-ass say them after the fact. He did it the entire pandemic. He come out and say, well, guys, please socially distance if you can. Please wash your hands if you can. Please, do all of these things instead of like being forceful about it. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if like the fear that Kevin Stitt will fire him for making him look bad or something, but
I mean, that's probably
being frank, I at some point your obligation has to be to saving lives and not to Kevin Stitt. I assume Kevin Stitt will find some politically ambitious dickhead to do his bidding, but you have to not be the and I say, and frankly, by now he wouldn't fire him now if he done it prior to school, because it's probably a year in, so it'd be kind of a political thing now to not fire him. But yeah, I just like the national political ambitions before the people, and that says a lot about how rotted that movement is. Because of course we were never going to vote for them, but they're betting that it doesn't matter how many of their own citizens they kill, that will not affect through idiocy, through stupid policies, through just inaction, or even worse than inaction, right? Through adverse actions favoring COVID. They are betting that, such as not allowing masking in schools, right? The most basic shit. They are betting that doing that, objectively killing more people, will help their political ambitions. So let's just say how rotted that side of the owl is, to murder your way to the presidency. Murder 2024. Like, what are we doing?